Well, you could call it a landmark discovery. New documents just released today by St. Joe County Police point to the sheer number of police and fire calls to Landmark Recovery Rehab Center.
And tonight we continue our coverage of Landmark Recovery Rehab Center, the site of several recent death investigations. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Melissa Stevens.
And I'm Terry McFadden. As you may recall, Landmark is the facility located south of Mishawaka that we told you about the last 2 days, where police are investigating 3 recent deaths there. Maria Catanzarite is following the very latest today from our newsroom. She's been going through the pages of records that we received from county police as part of a 16 News Now public records request. Maria?
Terry, Melissa, Landmark has only been open for 11 months now, and in the 192 days so far this year, county police have been sent there 111 times. The incidents ranging from reported rapes to sexual assault to overdoses, and County PD telling us they routinely receive reports that staff will not let patients call police and discourage reporting incidents. A busy year for St. Joe County Police, responding to over 100 calls to Landmark Recovery Center, which has yet to be open for a year. Of those 111 calls for 2023, a department spokesman on Wednesday says there are 26 reported incidents, including now 6 overdoses, 2 rapes, a sexual assault, plus a stabbing. For the 2 rape cases, the incident reports released to 16 News Now as part of a public records request state that in one of the situations, a staff member was raped by a patient in an office, and that Landmark Recovery refused to hand over video of the suspect to investigators. In the second alleged rape, a patient telling police they tried reporting the assault to several Landmark employees, but the incident report from officers says Landmark told her nothing could be done. One of the workers even advised the victim that the suspect, quote, is like that sometimes. Investigators adding, this indicates that the suspect has assaulted others and the staff knew of his actions. The victim was unable to report the incident until after she was discharged. Police records from last fall indicate one reported incident of sexual battery in which a patient claims Landmark staff would not let them call police and would not address the sexual harassment. And I've been checking my email several times in the last hour, and I still have yet to receive a response from Landmark Recovery's public relations team about these recent call numbers that we just got today from St. Joe County Police. But coming up tonight at 6, I'll go more in depth into investigators' notes from the other incidents, including how they say Landmark staff allegedly handled cases of physical violence. Terry.
Wow. Maria Catanzarite live from the newsroom tonight with an update. Maria, thank you.
And we are coming on the air at 6 with an update to a story we've been investigating all week long here. We hope you're safe. I'm Joshua Short. Lauren has the night off. New details have emerged today about Landmark Recovery. That's the Mishawaka rehab facility we've told you about, where 2 suspicious deaths happened in a week. And we're now learning just how many trips police made to that location so far this year. Spoiler, it's a lot. Maria Catanzarite joins us from the newsroom after sifting through all that paperwork. Maria, what did you find out there?
A lot of calls, Josh. A department spokesman says there's been 111 county police calls to Landmark in 2023 alone. The incidents ranging from death investigations, overdoses, sexual assault, rape. And in at least 4 instances, county police say Landmark staff would not cooperate with investigators. In a public records request to 16 News Now, a spokesman for St. Joe County Police says the 111 calls for police to the Mishawaka facility since the start of this year are the incidents that the department is aware of, as investigators routinely receive reports that Landmark will not let patients call police and discourage reporting incidents. In a January stabbing at the rehab center, police say Landmark staff, quote, were uncooperative and refused to provide detectives with any information or video, prosecutors seeking contempt. When analyzing call data, St. Joe County Police says since the facility opened 11 months ago, there have been 9 overdoses, which fire and police have been called out, including the overdose deaths of July 4th, July 3rd last week, and a previous overdose death on November 9th of 2022. And I've yet to hear back from Landmark Recovery regarding the police records that were released to us today. But of course, Josh, we will be staying on top of this story and updating the public as soon as we learn the newest information. Yeah, do stay on it. Keep us apprised. Maria Catanzarite bringing us all these new details tonight. Maria, thank you. We're going to take a turn to our fourth to a story our team actually broke last week involving Landmark Recovery in Mishawaka. A former patient is telling our team
what he claims happened in his month-long stay at the facility.
That's the Mishawaka Recovery Facility coming under fire by former and current staff, as well as the St. Joe County Sheriff, who's asking the state's Division of Mental Health to revoke the center's license.
All of this is coming, too, after those jaw-dropping accusations released by police in response to our public records request, which included rape cases, deadly overdoses, and other forms of physical violence. Keep in mind, though, the site was only open for 11 months.
Maria Catanzaro joins us from the newsroom after sitting down with a former patient. Maria, what can you tell us?
Well, Michael Scarberry, Lauren, was inpatient at Landmark for 28 days, just graduating late last month. And I checked out his certificate of completion, other relevant medical documents, and Michael says being at the facility was like every man fending for himself against people stealing your stuff, against the temptation to fall back and use again. Outside improving his cornhole game with the sun shining on this summer day. This is a good moment for Michael Scarberry of Elkhart County, but he says he doesn't have to turn back too much time for the complete opposite.
It was just mayhem, absolute mayhem. I basically lost 28 days of my life to a program that was false.
A recovering addict, Michael says he recently spent 28 days at Landmark Recovery, the Mishawaka rehab facility that the St. Joe County Sheriff wants to see shut down. Over 100 police calls just this year alone, including documented rape cases, several overdoses, and sexual abuse incidents.
I went there to recover, and it didn't teach me any of the tools. Instead, it, took me further behind, to be honest.
That's because Michael says he mostly hid in his room, except for the one time he went to recovery class, all to avoid his stuff getting stolen. Did you even get in trouble for not going to any more classes?
Nothing.
But still, Michael claims his medicine would get stolen.
And then I'd go through withdrawals again, so it was just a everyday thing, pretty much until I got out of the facility.
Were you afraid?
It was a dangerous facility, yes, with no security. I mean, I am a man, but there are 150 men. What are you going to do, It's one against everybody.
After graduating in late June, Michael claims he was set to start IOP, intense outpatient treatment with Landmark's Mishawaka campus.
Supposed to have a date to sign up to go on there. I went to it. There was no one there. I have called multiple times. I mean, I call every week and still no answer.
Until someone picks up the phone, Michael is striving to stay sober, but not all in his own might. What's keeping you clean right now?
Myself and God, and family, and just God. It's honestly nothing I got from praxis. It's a shame, but that's the truth.
Over the weekend, Landmark sent us an updated statement saying that they parted ways. They separated with their executive director and nursing director at the Mishawaka location, but did not terminate, did not fire them, as the company initially reported to us, Josh.
Very important stuff. Continue to stay on top of this story. Maria Catanzaro right in the newsroom for us. Maria, thank you. We're going to take a turn. Thank you, sir. Some new reporting for us at 6 o'clock. The fallout Landmark Recovery as we continue looking into all the problems happening there for over the past. Getting forward to them. Thank you, sir. Some new reporting for us at 6 o'clock. The fallout Landmark Recovery as we continue looking into all the problems happening there for over the past week. Our team has been updating you on a series of issues concerning the rehab center in Mishawaka.
From death investigations to documented cases of rape and possible drug trafficking within the facility. But now we're hearing from a former patient who says he was stabbed there. Maria Catanzaro live in the newsroom and has that part of our coverage tonight. Maria.
Tim Miller says he thought he might do a month or so at Landmark so he could further heal from the death of his daughter and other hard times in life. But he made it 9 days and left with a scar on his chest.
How would you describe your experience at Landmark in a few words?
Yikes. Ouch. I don't know. It was scary. I didn't think I was going to make it out, to be honest.
For the 9 days Tim Miller spent at Landmark Recovery, he has a scar and bloody shorts to show for.
They had Sunday night. I remember it was a Sunday night.
In a public records request to 16 News Now, St. Joe County Police lists Tim Miller as a stabbing victim from the incident that happened January 8th of this year at the rehab facility.
My first instinct was, wham, I mollywopped him right over the head with my cane.
Tim, who's legally blind, tells me he whacked the assailant, a fellow patient, with his cane to prevent them from stabbing a younger male patient.
He's like, oh, why'd you hit me?
And the next thing Tim knows,
I'm taking my shirt off and wadding it up and putting it up here. because I realized I've been stabbed in the chest.
Miller alleging the already short-staffed Landmark facility was not quick to respond when he pled for help while bleeding from his chest.
I'm like, dude, where's the phone? I'm looking in the offices, no phones anywhere to take them.
And you're legally blind, correct?
Right. So, you know, I'm walking into each one while I'm leaking, holding this pressure, trying to find a phone to save my life because this guy's lost it, you know.
When he finally was taken to the hospital, Tim says he learned he also got lacerations to his liver and diaphragm and never went back to Landmark, a facility where Tim claims he and other patients had to go hungry.
You know, there's no staff on our wing. That's why we didn't get fed for 3 days.
Alleging he was not administered his antidepressants and suffered the withdrawal side effects.
When I went into seizures and convulsions in the hallway, that's when they finally figured out that we hadn't been getting anything.
A place where Tim says he had hoped to learn healthy ways to cope with his daughter's death and other abuse he had suffered.
Were you ever required to attend classes?
No.
But in Tim's words,
It was definitely a learning experience.
according to Miller, he won't be facing any charges for trying to defend the couple from getting stabbed. That is, when he hit the suspect who ultimately stabbed him. And we're still awaiting a response from the state's Division of Mental Health regarding if Landmark Recovery will be able to keep their license at the Mishawaka facility.
Watch this space. Maria Catanzaro with that exclusive report. Air tonight at 6 with a developing story into an ongoing investigation into Landmark Recovery. We hope you're safe. I'm Joshua Short.
And I'm Lauren Moss. In the last couple of hours, state health officials confirmed to our team there's an open investigation into that rehab center in Mishawaka.
Yeah, this development comes just hours after another former patient actually reached out to our team who says living at the facility was worse than being in jail.
Our Maria Catanzaro joins us from the newsroom with new details on more fallout at Landmark Recovery. So, Maria, what can you tell us?
Lauren and Josh, Cheyenne Gross tells me that she reached out to us after seeing last night's story in which we interviewed a former patient, a fellow patient at Landmark Recovery, who Cheyenne says this was the man whom she claims prevented her from getting stabbed back in January. Cheyenne Gross is still gripped with questions about her month at Landmark Recovery.
I would have rather stayed in jail than to go to rehab. I just don't get how people are supposed to come in there and get better when they're leaving with more trauma when they walked in than they left.
The trauma for Gross, she says, witnessing the knife that she claims was intended for her and her boyfriend in early January that instead sliced fellow former patient Tim Miller.
They had Sunday night. I remember it was a Sunday night.
Who reached out and shared his account with 16 News Now on Tuesday.
I didn't think I was going to make it out, to be honest.
About the embattled Mishawaka facility that's being investigated by St. Joe County Police after over 100 police calls since the new year, including documented rape cases, overdoses, death investigations, plus that January 8th stabbing that left Tim Miller with a scar on his chest, and Cheyenne Gross, an alleged almost victim, scarred herself.
So I don't understand, how is it just now hitting the news? And it bothers me because when I had to watch that video of Tim, it's traumatizing to me because I stood right there when it happened. And it happened to this poor old man. All because there's no structure.
But after the stabbing, Gross says she had to stay in rehab to avoid jail time and willed herself through Landmark's program.
We didn't have to attend classes. I chose to.
Echoing allegations made by other former patients and staff that Landmark lacked structure and security.
There were drugs in there. And we all just assumed that they were getting high because they were literally going nuts.
Cheyenne graduated from treatment in Mishawaka and has since maintained her sobriety. Still,
I want more people to reach out about this story, about Landmark, because if they don't reach out, then how is anything going to be ever done about it?
But from those trials, the glimmers for Gross were some of the connections she made at Landmark with others also trying to heal, like Tim Miller, whom she hasn't seen since the January stabbing that she says could have been her.
Appreciate him a lot, and if he sees this, I would love for him to reach out to me. I would love it.
And today I reached out to Landmark Recovery and still have not heard back from them regarding some of the claims that other patients have made and to see about their progress of possibly ever readmitting new patients.
Maria Catanzaro with that exclusive reporting for us from the newsroom tonight. Maria, thank you. Hey, let's take a look at our story our investigative team broke earlier this month right here on 16 News Now involving the troubles at Landmark Recovery in Mishawaka. Tonight, we are now getting word the CEO had actually been warned by staff for months about the issues
This
there.
includes understaffing and safety concerns at that rehab facility. This is all according to multiple emails obtained by Maria Catanzarite. She has the story for us.
In roughly 5 months' time, Landmark Recovery, a drug rehab center, the site of over 100 police calls, including ones to investigate a pair of rape cases, a stabbing, overdoses, and 3 death investigations.
Are you surprised?
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Cheryl Hollingsworth, the former assistant director of nursing at the Mishawaka facility, remembering what she claims they were dealing with before the center even opened.
When we didn't have enough staff, for sure. We did not have cameras. That's another thing that should have been done, before the facility opened. The patients could sneak out at night, go through their windows, and then come back the next morning. That is one way that drugs were brought into the facility.
A June email from a former employee whose identity we have verified and are keeping anonymous indicates Landmark CEO Matt Boyle had been warned prior to the July death investigations about understaffing and safety concerns at the Mishawaka Rehab Center. In the same email to colleagues, the former employee says they had met with a rep for Boyle, who allegedly says the CEO, quote, feels the staffing levels are appropriate for census, and that in a previous round of site visits of the nearly 50 patients and employees interviewed, all had expressed feeling safe.
Corporate was there, throughout, the phase of getting things up and going, up and running.
This is Matt Boyle, the CEO for Landmark Recovery. The company website says he graduated from Duke University, worked in business strategy consulting, and then for his family business called Landmark Senior Living before founding Landmark Recovery in 2016.
Excuse me, sir, do you work here?
On Tuesday, I stopped at the Mishawaka facility that's currently under investigation by state health officials.
I'm Maria Catanzarite from WNDU.
I had heard the CEO, Matt Boyle, was visiting there this week. Off camera, I asked to speak with him.
Thank you.
As you can see, I was able to get in. I spoke to a receptionist and I just asked her if I could speak with the CEO of Landmark Recovery, Matt Boyle. Mainly just want to know what's going to be taken, what steps are going to be taken to help keep this facility in Mishawaka safer, to help prevent the stuff that we've been covering over the past several stories. And I waited for a few minutes and the receptionist told me that Matt is not doing interviews today. So I left my business card and, maybe we'll be able to speak to him another day.
Now to a 16 Investigates update to a story we broke to you earlier this month surrounding the Landmark Recovery saga. In the last few hours, we're getting word about some new allegations against the company.
Those allegations include Landmark not being able to pay its bills and even some higher-ups discouraging employees from calling the police during emergencies.
Maria Catanzarite joins us now from the newsroom with the latest. Maria, what's up today?
Lauren, a former digital marketer, says he witnessed firsthand company credit cards getting declined, and then another former manager who spoke to us about 2 weeks ago says she's got even more to share now. And just a warning, some of the details that you're about to hear are disturbing.
If that means I have to be a voice for them, and so be it.
Kelsey Crago tried to serve her patients as an assistant manager at Landmark Recovery.
It got to a point where it's like, all right, what am I really doing here? Like, I'm a part of an organization that wants essentially to cover up crimes.
While WNDU is not aware of any concealment charges against the company, Crago claims calling 911 was not the first priority in emergencies.
You don't call the cops. You call upper management. And upper management calls home office.
Were you actually discouraged?
Yes.
From calling 911?
Yes, more than once.
By whom?
Upper management.
She says she left after less than 3 months.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Crago says that came when she saw a patient attempt suicide after his cries for help were ignored by higher-ups.
He needed a higher level of care and they didn't bother to do anything about it. So because he was so miserable and he wanted help for both his addiction and his mental health, but he wasn't getting it, the only way he saw out was suicide.
Thankfully, she believes the patient survived.
They didn't want to help him whatsoever. They wanted to keep him there because they saw him as a dollar sign.
The signs of the company's financial instability obvious, according to former Landmark digital marketer Jason Brown, who claims company credit cards got declined when he tried paying for web-link services.
But then when I went in and logged in, I noticed that we'd swapped out our credit cards 10 times in the course of 2.5 years. But even my boss used a credit card under a family member's name once because that's how bad things were.
Brown says the company pushed to keep facilities filled with patients.
So we got an email that came out every day called FTFB, and it was code for fill the beds. And so we got head counts every day.
He was laid off by Landmark in March.
And then this one email, they said that they lost $25 million in the course of a year from just expanding too fast.
As for the company's future, Brown believes it's best the company either shuts down or removes its current CEO, Matt Boyle.
But Matt Boyle should be investigated and possibly put in jail for his criminal activities.
Now, to our knowledge, Matt Boyle is not being criminally investigated right now.
He needs to say something, he needs to come forward, and he needs to speak because everybody wants to know. So say something. Come forward. Have an interview. Tell us what's going on.
And guys, I've continued to reach out to Landmark about some of the specific questions that I have, and I've yet to receive a response.
You've even tried reaching out to the CEO. No avail just yet, but stay on it. Maria Catan's right in the newsroom for us tonight. Maria, thank you.
New developments now. Court documents investigates update. As we continue looking into Landmark recovery in Mishawaka, we're getting new information about when patients will have to find another rehab center.
And this comes after that big announcement came down yesterday from state officials revoking the license of Landmark in Mishawaka and 2 other cities in Indiana. This is all in response to our weeks of reporting into the site, which has been the subject of a lot of scrutiny, including suspicious deaths, sexual assault allegations, even drug trafficking involving employees. Our team also uncovering damning emails alleging the company not being able to pay its bills, and employees telling our team officials discouraged them to call 911 for emergencies.
And just into the newsroom, a statement from Representative Rudy Occam, who represents the area where this facility is located. It reads in part, quote, "The allegations leveled against the Praxis facility are disturbing. They demand a thorough investigation along with complete accountability for those who may have violated the law along with the public's trust."
Matt Gotch will have live reports at 5 and 6 o'clock, laying out the timeline for when patients will have to find a new place to go. He'll also have new reaction from former Landmark employees and officials at the site who say they disagree with the state's decision to take away its license. Again, that's at 5 and 6 o'clock.
Tonight with some breaking news to a story that we've been covering for weeks now. Landmark Recovery is putting employees at its Mishawaka Rehab Center on a 30-day furlough. In a staff email obtained by 16 News Now, the company says it's implementing a temporary furlough for those workers because Medicaid insurance contracts were canceled effective immediately for the Mishawaka location. The furlough starts on Monday with that process wrapping up on August 3rd. That's the same day Landmark hopes to have all of its Mishawaka patients either discharged or transitioned. Originally, those Mishawaka patients were supposed to be out of the facility by August 17th. Just this past week, Indiana's Division of Mental Health and Addiction revoked licenses for the Landmark facilities in Mishawaka, Bluffton, and Carmel, as well as 2nd District Congressman Rudy Occam. He also sent a letter to Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita asking Rokita's office to investigate the local rehab center.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Joshua Short. Lauren has the night off. We hope you're safe, and we're coming on the air at 6 with some brand new reporting into Landmark Recovery Rehab Center in Mishawaka. Did officials at that facility sense legal troubles were looming weeks before they were actually shut down by the state? Our team is hearing new allegations from a former employee who says it seemed like they were trying to cover their tracks. Maria Catan's right, talked to that employee. Maria, why does she believe something was up?
Josh, after the 3 patient deaths in early July, Adriana DeMuth says more and more patients are suddenly getting discharged even before completing their treatment. And this was after she claims the company got a pep talk to keep filling patient beds. And in the last few weeks, Adriana says a lot of people were getting fired, including herself.
At Landmark Recovery, Adriana DeMuth hoped to hone in on those skills that someday would make her a good social worker when she started her receptionist job in February.
I felt like it would be a really good experience for my career that I'm choosing to go into.
Jump ahead to this past Saturday. You got fired.
I did. I got fired.
Telling me she wasn't told why.
A couple weeks leading up to when I was let go, there was a lot of other people getting fired. Some it seemed like for no reason, at least no good reason.
Now rewind to a few weeks back, early July, after 3 patients died in a week, according to St. Joe County Police. That's when Adriana says she and her Mishawaka coworkers had a virtual meeting with Clifford Boyle, who is the CEO Matthew Boyle's father, per a 2020 news article about Landmark's facility expansions.
With that meeting, at the very beginning, he very quickly acknowledged the 3 deaths that happened at the facility. And it seemed to be almost like, I don't want to say fake tears, but kind of. It didn't seem very authentic. And then he immediately went into expansion and filling Medicaid beds and how important filling the Medicaid beds is and his equity. And all the employees at the PSBN facility were asking, like, we need answers, like, are our jobs secure? What are you guys going to say to the media? Because this obviously something needs to be said. What are the steps if we close? Like, we wanted real answers, and it was getting pushed back, and we never got those answers.
And then in mid-July, based on what she read in a Microsoft Teams message, Adriana says managers were being given corporate clearance to let patients leave treatment early for emotional trauma reasons.
I also had my coworkers texting me, like, why are they letting people leave so early? Because they thought it was a little shady or suspicious, that they were kind of just like, oh, you can go. Because the main thing that they focused on with us is retention, retention, retention. Don't let them leave because we need them to complete their treatment.
Last week, state health officials took away Landmark's license for Mishawaka and said patients had to be discharged or transitioned out by August 17th. A couple days later, a staff email 16 News Now obtained saying Mishawaka employees were to be furloughed and patients had to be out by August 3rd.
They were down to actually 10 patients when I was there Saturday.
The company acknowledging this past Monday the state's decision to shut down 3 of their Indiana Medicaid rehab centers. The one in Mishawaka, vastly understaffed, in the words of the St. Joe County Police, emptying out.
With them pushing them out of the facility like that and then also firing all the staff, seemingly, it seemed like they were trying to cover their tracks or make people stay quiet, which isn't going to happen because, lawsuits and stuff going on.
If Adriana could have one more conversation with Landmark Corporate.
And it's not from a place of anger, but it's a place for, if you guys really care about the money that you're making, you need to make real changes and go to the facilities that you are wanting to open. I mean, just think about the things that are going on. Just realize the damage that was done and apologize for it.
And despite what Adriana says she experienced at Landmark in Mishawaka, she tells me that she is still determined to earn her bachelor's in social work and possibly someday get a master's in that field. Josh.
And for those curious, we've reached out to Matt Boyle, yet to hear back from him. We've heard back, obviously, from the site. Keep on digging. Maria Catan's right. She's been all over the story, the tip of the spear for us. Thank you for that reporting. We want to turn now to our forecast. On this Wednesday, Scene Investigates team continues to dig up new info about Landmark Recovery's legal battles. We're getting word tonight about the company's financial troubles.
In fact, we are learning a judge has ordered the company to pay thousands of dollars after having unpaid bills at its facility in Indianapolis. Maria Catan's right live in the newsroom. Maria, you've been covering this fallout from the start, really since the beginning of the month. What's this about unpaid bills now?
Lauren, a source that we have verified who wants to stay anonymous showed us about 2.5 years worth of Landmark changing out credit cards numerous times because payments for a certain web service would fail. All the while, a judge just very recently in Marion County is ordering Landmark to pay a little over $19,000 because of an unpaid account.
Landmark Recovery facing legal battles, but also bill-paying blunders. An anonymous source that 16 News Now has verified provided us with the company's transaction history for a marketing web service it uses. Between February of 2021 and July of this year, a span of 2.5 years, the bill history for Landmark's SEMrush account shows the company had to use at least 8 different credit or debit cards to clear payments, with the method of payment failing at least 13 times. You see the carousel of cards starting to spin in September of 2021, changing out this one for that one because a payment had failed. And the same sort of deal in January of 2022. Cards getting swapped out for a $248 charge that didn't go through. Jump ahead to September of 2022. another card switch because a $6 charge failed. And a judge's late July ruling shows Landmark Recovery has a history of unpaid bills. 16 News Now has just learned that Landmark Recovery has been ordered to pay a little over $19,000 to the business park where the company has its Indianapolis location. The law firm representing Intech Park sent a letter to Landmark Recovery of Indy this past April. That's because last August, the company had not paid the full bill for the Indy facility's assessment account. Come December, the business park reportedly sent a second notice to Landmark about the unpaid bill. In all, Landmark was sent 3 notices to pay up for the assessment account for the Indianapolis location.
So while Landmark in Indianapolis was sent that first notice of unpaid account last August, the company had interestingly just opened its facility in Mishawaka right around the same time. Now, meanwhile, at the Mishawaka facility, the St. Joe County Coroner, Dr. Jordan, is asking a court to order Landmark to release surveillance video as well as other camera footage related to those 3 death investigations that we've been telling you about that happened at the facility all within 1 week last month. And I have reached out to Landmark Recovery to comment on these issues that I discussed in the story, and I've yet to hear back.
Yeah, stay on it like you have from the start. Our Maria Catanzarite. Great reporting, Maria. Thank you.
All right, let's get a check of the forecast on investigation, ongoing investigation into the troubled Landmark Recovery Rehab Center. 16 investigators learned the wide net of legal troubles has gotten even wider overnight.
We are talking dozens and more former patients at the Mishawaka site joining that lawsuit. And now we're getting word of a new lawsuit against another location, this time in Bluffton.
Maria Catanzarite has been on this beat for about a month now. She joins us from the newsroom with that all-new reporting. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Josh, so the Landmark Mishawaka lawsuit, get this now, up to 37 former patients and about a dozen from the Bluffton facility filing their own suit overnight. Now, there are some different allegations between the 2 suits, but the attorney representing both groups says in all of his years of practicing law, a couple decades, he tells me that he has never seen healthcare facilities that were in the conditions that these 2 were allegedly in.
A big batch of former patients at 2 of Landmark Recovery's now shuttered Indiana facilities joining lawsuits. Overnight, 28 new plaintiffs added to the suit filed 2 weeks ago on claims patients at the Mishawaka facility suffered serious and debilitating personal injuries. 10 former Bluffton patients also suing Landmark for similar injuries.
There is a lot of overlap, but then there's some difference.
Attorney Trevor Crossan with Crossan Law Firm out of Carmel representing both groups of patients. He says former Bluffton patients claimed they had to live with black mold in their facility.
A lot of them asked to be transferred to the hospital, and Praxis refused to do so. A lot of the staff just said, use your inhaler, and the inhaler was not effective.
As far as common allegations from the former Bluffton and Mishawaka patients,
They were talked to in a demeaning manner. They were given other patients' medications. People who were withdrawing from a certain substance weren't given the proper medications to detox.
both suits also accusing Landmark of failing to intervene when people were sexually or physically assaulted within the 2 facilities, despite knowing people were getting hurt. Former patients at both facilities also accusing the company of failing to clean up vomit and feces, despite knowing rooms or other parts of the facilities were contaminated.
I've handled a lot of cases against a lot of corporations, against a lot of healthcare facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, and this is by far and away the worst environment that I've ever seen in a healthcare facility.
And the attorney for the former patients from both sides expects there to be at least another round or 2 of former patients added to both lawsuits. And I've been constantly checking my emails, Lauren and Josh, and Landmark Recovery has not responded to my requests for comment today.
Yeah, Maria Catanzarite, some great reporting for the past month. Maria, thank you.
TikTok on those responses, that's for sure. All right, Maria, thank you. Our coverage continues tonight in that deadly Elkhart fire, which killed the issues at several Landmark Recovery Rehab centers. We've been on this story ever since St. Joseph County began looking into the Mishawaka site last month. Tonight, our team got a call from some former employees, not here in town or even in the state, but in Las Vegas. And what they told us happened in Vegas may not have stayed there. Maria Catanzarite is on it for us tonight.
Nancy Wiggers and Eric Escoto both worked at different times for Landmark Recovery's facility in Las Vegas.
I mean, I'm in South Bend, Indiana. This is in Las Vegas. What makes you want to share your story with me?
Landmark is dangerous. Landmark is dangerous to the public. I am afraid that if every state doesn't do what Indiana did and revoke licensure and CMS pull funding, I'm afraid that more people are going to die.
Y'all are the ones that are finally doing something. There's so many of us.
So many former Landmark employees, Jesse says, who can relate to the claims former workers and former patients have told WNDU this last month about the company's alleged chronic understaffing, unqualified workers, and questionable practices in substance abuse treatment.
It's about getting numbers of bodies into beds at any cost.
An example of that, Jesse says, is when she was the patient engagement manager in Las Vegas, and the admissions team there tried to admit a potential client whose blood alcohol content was too high to even read, even though on-site medical staff said that person first needed to go to the emergency room before going to treatment.
This boys club mentality in the home office was like they're playing games. We have, again, clinical and medical licensure on the line.
And for 1 month in the summer of 2021, Eric Escoto was the HR manager at the Las Vegas Landmark facility. In that time, he claims the treatment center had numerous safety hazards, like having unlicensed nurses working, medications left out in the open, broken fire alarms, emergency exit doors that were bolted shut. Plus, he says an estimated $200,000 of unpaid invoices.
How do you know that?
Because as HR, I was somehow put in charge of invoices and billing. Every day I was getting calls from vendors saying, hey, what are we doing? Where's our payment? We're going to shut off services.
Jesse and Eric both ultimately fired from Landmark, telling me they weren't given warnings about any bad behavior.
You could say something to Matt Boyle. What would you want to say, the CEO?
Stay away from this population. Matt Boyle should not be allowed anywhere near a vulnerable population. Him and his whole quote unquote bunny slayer squad should never be allowed to work in healthcare.
Jesse adding that losing a job with Landmark goes beyond losing a paycheck.
I need two hands to count the number of coworkers who have had a recurrence of use while working there. And all of those I can contribute to the stress of working for Landmark, and several of them have passed away.
In St. Joe County, I'm Maria Catanzarite.
Maria,